Jack Mitchell has had many careers. A great athlete at Staples High School in the 1950s, studied Chinese history at Wesleyan and Berkeley. Jack worked in a research institute and then spent the bulk of his career building his parents' store, Ed Mitchell's, from a small clothing shop into a business that now includes 8 high-end locations on both coasts. Jack's latest career is as an author. He's written 3 books in a hugging series, How to Hug Customers, Employees, and Everybody Else in Business. And like Mitchell's, his books are highly successful. Welcome, Jack, to 06880, the podcast.
Thank you, Dan. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for
great.
that nice introduction. Just 2 little comments on the introduction.
Sure.
The first is my brother Bill was right by, I was by his side because he was the one that invited me to come in the family business. So I never forget that, and very grateful to my brother and invited me into the family business. And also, my second career is I like to do the speaking about hugging and make sure everyone knows that hugging is a metaphor, especially in these day and age. It's making people feel better or making people feel great.
Internationally known speaker. So let's dive right in. Did you plan on any of those careers?
I really didn't. No, I didn't. I planned to try to get into, which I was very fortunate to go to a great university like Wesleyan, to get a liberal arts education. And then I got very excited by a professor there on the Far East. I think you may remember also that I was the first American Field Service student from Staples in 1956 when I went to Germany. And so it was a real experience in 1956 to get on a ship and go over and so forth and so on. But I lived with a refugee family, and it really changed my life of wanting to know more about this world and become more worldly about other cultures. And then when the huge new culture that I bumped into was the Far East and focused on China, and I just I followed that. I followed my dreams, followed what I wanted to do, and I went out to get a doctorate in Chinese history. My wife Linda, I knew Linda from Staples High School. My lovely wife, we've been married over 60 years, and 4 sons and 7 adult grandchildren. Anyway, I met her and we fell in love in college. She went to Connecticut College for Women, and we got in a car and drove west. And the rest is history. I couldn't get a doctorate because I couldn't handle the Chinese language, but I did end up with a master's and came back. And then what was I going to do? All of a sudden, Linda was pregnant, thank goodness, because I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I would have served. I wouldn't have gone like some of my friends to Canada, but I would have if I had been drafted. But if you had a child or were pregnant, you didn't have to go into the military. And I followed my dreams, and I worked for Dad for a while, and then I worked, as you indicated, at a place called the New England Institute. And then Bill invited me in. So if I think, again, another story, but it's too long to tell here, but I view sort of life as a merry-go-round. You go up and down on the merry-go-round, right? And if you're happy, you just go there by and you bring your kids but sometimes you want to grab that ring. Is it a bronze ring or a golden ring? And if you're ready, if you're prepared, so I was prepared for this career of being an author and speaking, and I did I was a panelist at our CEO Summit back in 2002, and our panel was talking about the next decade, what was the next decade, and the keynote speaker earlier in the morning before our panel went up, he said that if you didn't have a website, a decade from now, any stores like Mitchell's, a bricks and mortar store, a real store, was going to be history. Everybody was going to be buying on the internet. The internet was going to take over the world. And all these 300 wonderful people that were CEOs, and they all cheered, they all stood up, and through his early morning address. And when our panel went up, we each had 6 minutes. The first CEO, she said the same thing. Next CEO, I was number 3. And it was one of those stages, Dan, where you can walk right down and in the middle of everybody. And I jumped up and down and I said, not only are we going to survive, we're going to thrive over the next decade, because we're all about something I haven't heard anybody talk about. We're about customers. Customers are the center of the universe. We actually now have values cards. And the very first one says customers, center of the universe, and bullets, and then relationships. And we're about data, but we use data to keep personal, not just to know the score, and so forth. And I sat down after my 6 or 7 minutes, came off stage afterwards, and the president of Bergdorf Goodman, who is one of the finest stores in the world in New York City, owned by Neiman Marcus, he put his finger in my face. He said, Jack, next thing you're going to tell me is that you and your employees actually hug your customers. And I thought about it for a minute, and you and I both know my brother Bill. He's the biggest hugger in the world. He's the hugging part of our business, and he was hugging your dad, or he was hugging somebody that was part of the community, always by permission, but a high five or a shaking hands. And I said, doesn't everybody? And then I realized that not everybody did. And then they asked me to be a keynote speaker because my speaking was really what I enjoyed doing. I had learned to do the speaking after I came back from American Field Service because they asked me to go to Rotary clubs and the other clubs in town. So that's what I really wanted to do. And I had the content was about our family business. And but they said, you can't get a speaking engagement unless you write a book, right? Jack Romanos, who was the CEO of Simon & Schuster, was a friend and a customer. And he came in, he said, Jack, I'll give you an hour of my time. I won't continue on the story, but that's what happened. And the books have sold, and I've done over 200 motivational speeches throughout the country and the world. I've been to Kazakhstan, which is in the news these days. I've been to South Africa, and I've been to Norwalk and New York City. And I love it.
And you spread the gospel of Mitchell's, of what it is and how it continues.
Exactly.
You got the 4th generation now waiting in the wings.
Yes.
How does a store like Mitchell's succeed in today's retail environment? What's the secret sauce beyond hugging customers, or is that it?
That's the secret sauce, I believe, truly, is our values. It's trying to make people feel great that come in the store, and that make them feel and get to know them on a personal level as well as a professional level. Because if we get to know you, then do you need a suit, or can you come in khakis and a gray sweatshirt or shirt? That's what we need to know. We need to know that about the customers. Yes, we have to always have the finest products in the world, but because we've grown, and again, it's personalization of relationships. I mean, friend of mine, Harry Rosen, who owns the best cars in Canada. Now his son Larry runs the business, and his grandson. Anyway, he took me by the hand and introduced me to Jill Dozenia and Giorgio Armani and all the great, designers and European collections. He said, as Westport changed from just the local people to having all these wonderful people move to Connecticut, and GE opened and all these corporations, they bought better clothes. They weren't only buying Chevys and Fords. They were buying, or they had 2 or 3 cars, and they had 2 or 3 homes, and you don't want to schlep your clothes to Florida. You might as well have another wardrobe there. So we learned all those things together by really trying to focus on the center of the universe, customers. That's really who we are. And then all of a sudden, as our sons came in, we have 4 sons. Bill has 3. All 7 have been in the business. 1 left the business, and he's doing fine. He works for a hospital now. And then, as you say, we have the next generation. And by the way, we have an outside advisory board. We have a family council, outside advisory board, and a family assembly. And the whole thing is, again, getting to know each other and keeping harmony in the family. And you have to work 5 years somewhere else after you graduate from college. Every one of the 3 Gs, we call them, 3rd generation, that are in the business, they all went to college had graduated from great schools, and then they worked 5 years or more at another job, learning what it is to have a real job and get paid and not be the boss or not own it and so forth. And they all did that. And then they came in, so they had a chance to make their own dreams. They all knew they were going to be owners because our parents gifted us the business, and we were fortunate enough to be in a position to do that too. So it's not the wealth in terms of the money, it's the wealth in terms of the family getting together and then having your associates that work for you or your employees feel like they're part of the family too.
It does not sound like brain surgery or rocket science.
Right. It isn't.
But Why doesn't everybody do that? Why doesn't every company have those values?
Family business. Well, I don't know about every company, but in the family business side, it's difficult because sometimes there are different. They don't like their brother, they hate their sister, or their father never said that they loved them. I mean, little things like that we have learned over the years. And our parents were wonderful parents. They set the example for Bill and for me. And we don't agree on everything, but we've studied how to have, we have a family meeting every Tuesday. During the pandemic, of course, we Zoomed. And we have I have a Zoom meeting today for our executive group, after we finished it right now. And it's all the executives that are in our 8 stores that are senior executives. So we try to communicate open, candid, honest communications. And most of our family, of course, we like making money. That's the old-fashioned way. And we have a very strong balance sheet. But it's more the wealth of getting to know each other and having fun and going on trips together and so forth that we do with our family assembly. So the next generations, again, we have 7 adult they've already, our oldest one is Lyle, Bob Mitchell's son, and he's at Columbia Business School getting an his MBA, and he worked 5 years at a tapestry, one of the businesses in our industry. And we're hoping he comes in, but we don't ask those questions. We do have a mentoring committee that's made up of our board, one of our board members and one of the family members. But I'm not sure. I hope that all of them will have an opportunity, provided they want to do it and they want to be part of the family business. And I think we'll probably get some, but they all have great jobs. I mean, one works for Amazon, one's for Pinterest. Again, it's all the digital side, and we need that because it's a digital world. We all know that now.
It's a digital world, but it hasn't always been.
Right.
So as you look back at your life at Mitchell's, what stands out? And any particular moments or?
Oh, there's so many wonderful moments, Dan. In terms of the digital side, I remember coming in from this New England Institute, which was doing basic research in medicine and science. And of course, they were using computers. IBM had just started with their big, huge computers. And I said and Russell, our son, remember it was Lotus 123 that IBM bought in the early days of how to do your planning, doing your cash flow projections, for example. Russell was doing that for me because I had to save in order to have our sons go to college. So I had to put away. And so all of a sudden I came into the business and Dad said, you can't have a computer. We don't need a computer. We don't need a cash flow. But of course I did it anyway. I found ways of doing it. And then all of a sudden I found that somebody in the confidentially, well, it's not confidential, tell it here, but was stealing from us. And because we owed people money that we didn't know we owned. My dad did, and I didn't. And we found that out. Of course, we took actions on that. But all of a sudden, Dad realized we could do a cash flow, and we needed to do it and look at every item on a regular monthly basis. And so we've used the digital that I started, but really, Russell, our oldest son, came in, and all of the work we've done on our online business, which is now robust, and all of the data that we use, he's developed himself with others that he's retained and hired. We have 6 developers for our website and our technology, and a data scientist.
So for a business that prides itself on the personal touch and all that, where does the digital side come in? Are you losing anything there with?
I think it just enhances it. It enhances it, again, online. So if somebody comes online, we know whether you're online or not, because people know that, right? So if there's a wedding coming up, we want to know that. Or if there's a birthday coming up, we know your birthday, your anniversary date if you're married.
You probably met 1 million people in your career. Any standouts, either famous or obscure?
Well, we've had many celebrities, as you well know, because this town was built on celebrities. I mean, we remember all the actors and actresses that used to live here. I mean, the other day there was a big thing on CNN about Marilyn Monroe, and I said to my family, "Do you remember when Marilyn Monroe lived in Westport?" Nobody, they didn't believe me, Dan. They said, "Well," I said, "I remember, right? I remember where she lived, right? So, Paul Newman was a wonderful friend. He actually endorsed my book, Hug Your People, which I was very grateful to him for that. But really, whether they're the celebrities or whether they're just a wonderful friend like yourself that comes in, or your family, and we try to treat people and try to get to know them as real friends. In fact, when Elliot used to do a radio commercial, who was an actor, was a radio sportscaster, once a customer, always a friend. So again, we used to go down and, we would, the little kids were coming in. We have, as you know, we have a corner where the kids can watch TV and cartoons, and Mom always brought the coffee as a symbol of our, here closer than I am, but Wilton, to the railroad station here at the library. We used to buy out the coffee person and then buy the New York Times out, and we used to give the papers to our commuters friends, and that worked out so well they couldn't believe. I could give you the actual ad that we stapled to that Dad wrote a poem. He liked to write poems. He was not a commuter anymore. Come on down. You don't have to go to Brooks Brothers in New York or whatever. Come in our store where we'll get you a cup of coffee. And we did that, and then we did it in Wilton, we did it in New Canaan, and we did it in Fairfield, Southport, and we did it at all the railroad stations for years. And it just created that kind of a give back. And then my dad became, he was on the Board of Finance here in town, and my brother Bill was involved in Westport. And then I did the same things with my wife. Linda was chairman of the Board of Education in Wilton. So we're part of the community.
You grew up here.
I did. Campo Beach.
How has the community changed?
Gosh, I think the culture of the community has remained very, very consistent, of wanting to give back to the community. I mean, look at this library. I mean, we both remember when it was across the street, and then they put a wing on, and they invite people like yourself to come in and talk about the community. I've done a couple of hug speeches for the community here in the library. So I think it's people really or if you want a cocoon and have not anybody know you, that you can still do that too. And we see this a lot now, right? I mean, can you imagine the first-time customers we have because of the pandemic that have come out of New York City and bought homes here, or bought homes in Wilton, or bought homes in they just can't believe the community is such a wonderful, warm place. And we talked earlier, before that we went on, Longshore. You did that just yesterday or day before in your 068AO. Longshore, to have a community place where you can play golf for almost nothing, and tennis and boating, part of that. I mean, it's a jewel, and people don't know that until they come.
You grew up right across from Longshore.
Yes, I did.
What was it like growing up as a kid?
Oh boy, it was wonderful. I mean, we had, in those days, we went crabbing and clamming right there, right? And then the Minuteman that we all know, when you come down to the beach, that symbolized obviously the British. You had the cannons a lot on the cannons symbolized when the British landed. The Minutemen, we were actually the first. They stood behind the stone walls, and they shot the British marching in their red uniforms as they were going up to Danbury to burn it. And there's a little cemetery right off Quentin Road. Our first little home that my mom and dad rented was right on that corner. And we used to play not cowboys and Indians, but we played Minutemen and the British. And and then of course right behind it is the swamp, and there's Longshore. So I would watch all our Jewish friends in those days play golf. And we had one token Jew that was at Saugatuck Elementary School, Jeff Strauss, whose parents owned a liquor store, and he's still certainly with us in Saugatuck. And I was the only WASP, because everybody else was in Saugatuck Elementary School was Italian, second generation, third generation Italians, because the Italians built the railroads. Anyway, it was a wonderful place. I learned that my mentors, a lot of them were coaches. As you said, I was a jock in junior and elementary school right through Staples. So a lot of the mentors were were the coaches. You had, we just honored Paul Lane, who passed away. We put, Albie Leffler, that you certainly know from the soccer. You're great men, and that's one of the things that I understand, that you're retiring on the soccer, and I respect that, but you're going to be missed because your values that you have shared with your players, I'm sure, will have lasted a lifetime. And I feel that way about Albie and Paul Lane, and my coaches that I had at Wesleyan were very similar. And so I got more. I've had a lot of my values, I think, were shaped by coaches rather than in the classroom. Although I had B. Louise Higgins, who was an icon at Staples High School in English, and she taught me how you write a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you do that in your own way. I remember how to do that, and so whether it's a speech or a book, so wherever we end this, I just want to thank you for the opportunity of being a Westporter, and yet spending most of my adult life and married life in Wilton. I still feel comfortable coming in and saying that, I grew up in this fabulous community.
83 years old, right?
Yes.
Any books in the works?
I have a book that I would really love to publish, which needs a little bit of updating, but which was on how parents or grandparents can hug their children or grandchildren through reading books. Because again, having these wonderful 7 adult grandchildren, since our sons are all in our family business, they were all in their communities, right? So I would go over when they were just little kids, and I would read to them at night. And I realized, in another survey I did of men of my era, very few men's fathers said to them, "I love you." They would have given everything. My dad did. Took a while when he was very ill, and we had and then I told him how much I really appreciated that, and then he spread that gospel, through me and Bill to our kids. So I would read it, and at the end of the book, I would say, how about a hug, or maybe in the middle of it. And I would always, and if we had to lights out at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever it was, we'd stop. And I said, "I love you very much, Ryan. I love you very much, Bob, or Lyle. And how about a hug?" And that would give him a hug. So I think, again, it's a metaphor. I had a lot of other examples, but of how do you transmit that real love? Is it giving, money to them, perhaps at a certain area, being philanthropic, helping them if they needed something for college or something for a home? But that comes very much. I think a lot of it is right in those early years. I know that I used to read books on when the kids were, those early years between birth and 7 or 8 years old is when they really, it's becomes part of their DNA. And I think the whole hugging idea of being nice to people and shaking their hands, giving them a high five and a hug, is something that I'd like to see in a book.
It's got to be tough during COVID.
It was very difficult but our wonderful, loyal customers, Dan, like yourself and others in the community, would go online, because we have a very robust, which went from 3 or 4% to like 25 or 30% at times of our business. And then we would know that you're on there so that we could point out, well, maybe you missed the fact they don't have the right shoes to go. You're wearing all, business shoes, and we have comfortable shoes, or maybe a pair of socks that were a little different, and so forth. And then as soon as they could come in, we all wear masks. It's just, today is, I think, the day everybody's taking them off, but we both still have to wear that in the library as I went back to my car to get my lab. So people felt comfortable coming in our stores. They knew that we would have a mask for them if they forgot, and then they came in, and we've become very busy. We had the last quarter, that's not confidential, but we're happy to say was a record last quarter, the whole holiday season, right through January, even better than 2019, because our people didn't buy a lot, and now they're coming in, and all of a sudden they're going to Florida, or they're starting to travel a little bit, or they're going to college for their kids, or and they want something new. And then everybody has a birthday, and if you're married, you have an anniversary, and they bought jewelry. Jewelry became, as you know, we're men's, women's, and we have a robust jewelry business. We're one of the largest jewelers in Connecticut if you put Mitchell's and Richards together. And, for a beautiful anniversary, especially if it's 25 or 50 years, or 60 years in my case, you want to give your spouse, and works the other way too, right? She wants to give me something. She took me all our family to Vermont. That was a while ago when I turned 80. So things like that, and our customers, we love we hug our customers. We try. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we're candid enough. If we make a mistake, we say, "We're sorry. Let's fix it right away." I mean, people that have come in now. A lot of people also gained weight or lost weight during the pandemic, right? They go to their closet. This is men now telling me these stories. They come in with 3 or 4 suits or sport coats, and they went through their closet, and they have a lot of suits and a lot of sport coats, but they don't fit. And then their wife said to them, or their significant other says, "You're going to wear that crummy old suit you've bought 10 years ago? Get a new one, for crying out loud." And so it's not about the money of our customers. It's not about the money, although we carry, obviously, quality products. But we don't. People have the wrong image too sometimes. Dan, just to clarify, if you find exactly the same SKU, stock keeping unit, whether it be a sport coat or a sweater, at Neiman's or any other place, and it's less, we'll match the price. But it has to be the same color, right? Because when you're a buyer, we know. Bill, when our dad died, we had obviously wonderful services for him. Or maybe it was my son Bob. One of them said he taught us to buy blue. And I usually wear blue, but I wear other colors too. But it's the color that just makes you feel great in things. So, but maybe your blue blazer, or maybe you need we had one customer that had like 8 homes, and you'd know him if I told you in Westport, and he had a blue blazer in every. Why should he schlep blue blazers? We have one customer in Palo Alto. You can imagine a store in Palo Alto with the tech people. They have, they've done very well in their businesses, but they don't know anything about clothes. They know about hoodies, right? And we make custom Xenia and Keton hoodies for them. It's made to measure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Custom hoodies. Who knew?
Custom hoodie. Who would have known, right?
Right. So the last question, and this has been a great sort of look back on your career and your life.
Thank you.
You hire an 18-year-old Jack Mitchell today.
Yes.
Kid that, right out of Staples, somebody who is the modern version of what you were. What would you tell him?
I would tell him to first watch and listen to those senior people that have been in our family business for quite some time that are not family. If, let's say, they're in selling, they're going to be in a sales associate rather than a buyer. Or if they're a buyer, they have to go to the market and listen to our buyers, how they treat their vendors, how the vendors treat us, and how we pick blue or gray or beige more than we do other colors. And I would listen. And then we hire for a career rather than a job. If you're viewing this as a job, that's okay, but we really would like to have you think of it as a career. So get to know my brother Bill. Why does he walk customers to the car? Why does he do that? And I pointed out to him one day, and he didn't even think this way, but I happen to at times. If the car was a Lamborghini, why were we selling the person a entry-level suit, right? They probably don't know the value and how a Keton jacket is made all by hand and the little nuances. So those are the things you can learn when you do things that are just nice to people. So I would say, listen and learn, watch our associates, and never, if you have a question, here I am. We'll be happy to discuss it.
And hug your customer.
And hug your customers and hug your associates, hug your people, there's people that are around you, right?
Hug your people.
Hug your people. And it's all about our people. And it's all about you who have just joined us, Dan, right? To make our business fun and profitable.
Great. Jack Mitchell, 60 plus years of Mitchell's stories and hugging and writing books and speaking. Thank you for joining us on 06880, the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Dan. The very best to you and your family.
You bet.